Hey everyone, welcome to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. Let's talk about Avengers Endgame and its use of time. First of all, big spoilers for Avengers Endgame, Game of Thrones Season 6, and several other movies are ahead. Avengers Endgame is unlike most time travel movies that I've ever seen. In one scene in the movie, the team is discussing the rules of time travel. Things like don't interact with your past selves and don't bet on sporting events. Rhodey, Scott, and Clint all claim they know exactly how time travel works, from movies like Back to the Future, Star Trek IV, and Hot Tub Time Machine. Then Banner gives them an explanation of why those movies aren't realistic that seems a little convoluted. Then, to add to the confusion, later Gamora kills past Nebula while present Nebula doesn't seem to be affected at all. So, I'm going to explain how temporal mechanics work in the MCU, and how Marvel cleverly set up the rules of time travel in its past movies. But before we get started, I want to know something. Is Endgame your all-time favorite time travel movie? And if not, what is? Let me know in the comments below. First, there are 4 basic thoughts of time and time travel. The first is that time travel just isn't possible for humans because we are linear beings trapped within time. That means that we have a past, a present, and a future, and it's all fixed. Like we're all moving through time on a train, and as we move, the tracks are being removed from behind us and laid down in front of us. The second is that time is a flat circle. Everything that has or will ever happen is written and can't be changed. This is featured in movies like Interstellar, when future, highly evolved humans transcend space-time to save their past selves from extinction. This is also how time travel works in Game of Thrones. Bran creates Hodor so Hodor could eventually bring Bran to the place where Bran created Hodor. And it's also the premise of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where future humans from a society built around Bill and Ted's music have to travel through time to make sure that Bill and Ted can create music. The third thought of time travel is that time is fluid and easy to change. And this is what's featured in most science fiction because it's the most fun. In Back to the Future, Marty keeps his parents from falling in love, and this slowly erases his own existence. And this is also like in the X-Men films, when Wolverine rewrites the past to prevent the worst X-Men films from ever happening. But the fourth type of time travel is the one employed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the branching timeline. In this type, we as human beings can only move in a straight line through time. We're like this rope. This is the past, and this, at the end, is the present. The past cannot be changed. By the way, I went off the green screen because it was really hard to chroma key this out. So, in Endgame, when the Avengers change events from the past, they are creating new alternate timelines. This idea of alternate timelines in the MCU was first teased in 2013 in Thor: The Dark World. There's a scene where Eric Selvig is giving a physics lecture to a nursing home, and his chalkboard is filled with Marvel Easter eggs. Among them is 616 Universe. In the comics, every alternate timeline is given a number designation. You may remember this being alluded to in Into the Spider-Verse. 616 is the number given to the prime Marvel Comics universe.
I've prevented countless terrible futures, and after each one there's always another.
The Ancient One can see many possible outcomes. This is because we always have infinite possible realities ahead of us, based on the decisions we make or just random events. Any of those events can be changed right up until the moment they happen. After that, all those events just become a part of our past. They make us who we are. In Infinity War, Doctor Strange isn't able to see one defined future, just 14,605 possible outcomes. And by the way, I just want to point out that the only reason the Avengers won in Endgame is because of the rat that stepped on the quantum tunnel controller. I bet in 14,604 possibilities the rat just doesn't step on the right buttons. That's right, the rat is the biggest hero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Anyways, back to temporal mechanics. Now imagine that time is a tube. Here's the past, and all the way up here is the present. Now you, as this ribbon, are moving through time. If you were to travel outside of time, say into the past, like this, whoop, events may have changed, but you are still going to be this same ribbon. Your future isn't written, but your past is. Remember, in Doctor Strange, the Ancient One couldn't see past her own death. That's because she, like all of us, exists in a straight line. Once her ribbon is cut, she couldn't see any further. So what happens to the past that you changed? In Endgame, Loki escapes with the Tesseract. Does that mean that the event is now part of the Avengers' past? No, it doesn't. That forms a new timeline that then proceeds on its own.
Temporal manipulations can create branches in time.
That timeline has branched off and become one of countless possible futures. However, you are still a part of your own timeline. That is why in Endgame, the Avengers still live in the reality where Loki was imprisoned and taken to Asgard, not where he escaped after the Battle of New York. That other Loki is now part of a different timeline. So let's explain some specific time paradoxes in Endgame. First, why didn't Nebula fade away when her past self was killed? Well, remember, in this universe, changing events in the past cannot affect your present. Again, our future isn't written, but our past is. That other Nebula now has her own rope that's part of a different timeline. And here's another one we've gotten a lot of questions about. Why did Cap have to return the Infinity Stones to their original time? The Ancient One explains this in the movie. The Infinity Stones have a special place in the universe. They work as a stabilizing force on the timeline. Without them, the universe is open to attack from other realities, like the Dark Dimension from Doctor Strange. By returning the stones to roughly the time and place where they were taken, he's minimizing the damage caused by their actions. By the way, this would also mean that he would have taken the Soul Stone back to Vormir and reunited with the Red Skull. What do you think that conversation would have been like? Let me know in the comments below. Next, let's talk about Steve Rogers growing old with Peggy. Does this mean that Steve created a new timeline when he stayed in the past? Well, the Russo brothers confirmed that the answer is yes. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, they explained that Steve does create a branch in reality when he stays in the past. So maybe in this other reality, he saves Bucky from being the Winter Soldier, destroys Hydra, and stops the threat of Thanos before it starts. So this timeline is perfect, just like the end of Jumanji.
Just like we remembered you.
The directors didn't say how Cap got back into this reality, only that maybe there's a story there. So I guess we'll have to wait for a Disney Plus series about the adventures of old Cap. But this also means that old Steve didn't live through the main MCU timeline. There were a lot of fan theories that Cap had been Peggy's secret husband all along.
He saved over 1,000 men, including the man who would become my husband.
But this could have never been the case because it relies on time being a flat circle. In other words, Steve would have to travel back in time to marry Peggy, so Peggy will be a widow when Steve is unfrozen. Remember, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you cannot change the past. You can only divert the flow of history into a new reality. Do you have any other questions about the timeline? Did you like the time travel plot? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.